After 50 years, I never thought I would be involved in such a partly unpleasant and partly fascinating story. A few years ago, I met Kate. We met in an unromantic way, through a questionnaire on a special site for singles. I was just coming out of a bad marriage and a difficult divorce, and Kate was raising her daughter alone, having been without a husband for over a decade. We met and instantly found common ground. I felt very happy. You bet you were. It's not every day you meet such a beautiful woman who is crazy about fishing and agrees to spend many weeks a year in a tent on the lake, and the rest of the time living practically in the dacha. The house that was left to me after my divorce really used to be our summer house, and before that, my father lived in that house. This situation is sad and complicated, though an ordinary life story. When I was a teenager, my father met an 18-year-old girl. They fell in love. I judged and didn't understand him. He immediately broke up with my mother, improved the house, and moved in with his young mistress. They never got married, though they seemed to live well. So when my father was gone, I had no qualms about kicking his cohabitator out of the house I had inherited. I was very happy that Kate had agreed to live with me out of town, but I wondered right away, would it be comfortable with a child? The woman laughed at my misgivings. It turned out that her 16-year-old daughter was already in college. Of course she needs to be looked after, but living together is out of the question. What a blessing. I thought happily. This kitchen had always made me sick. And so we began to live in our own wooden house, far from friends and neighbors among the century-old pines. There was a lake practically a stone's throw from us, where we regularly went fishing on boats or just sat on the shore with fishing rods. We both worked in the city, but it took no more than half an hour to get there. It seemed like the idyll and peace that I had only dreamed of in my first marriage was finally coming into my life. I hadn't seen my daughter more than 3 times in those 2 years. If they wanted to spend time together, I would just help my sweetheart get to town, where she and Emily would spend a few days together. Sometimes she'd come over for the holidays, or we'd drive over to her place. "What did you think of Emily?" Kate once asked me. We had this conversation after one of those brief encounters. I hesitated. "I didn't think anything of her. She's just a girl. She looks like Mom," I said carefully, "but Mom is much prettier." That answer seemed to satisfy Kate, and she smiled and hugged me. Today's children are not like we were, and it is very annoying. I went straight to work after my father left, and Kate had been working since she was 16. And this generation is always lazy, wants everything served on a platter. And Emily was exactly the same. But who can say that to a mother? And as for looks, the daughter does look a lot like Kate. The same regular features, thick blonde hair, the figure. Exact copy, but 22 years younger, and that's a lifetime. It takes away little by little the sharpness, the sparkle of the eyes, the shine of the hair, the stature and slimness. We resist, but we have lost this battle beforehand. So I had to cheat a little bit here too. This day started out like any other. We got in the car to get to work. Kate wasn't herself, but I figured she'd tell me everything when she was ready. "Emily's really upset with me," she said as we drove down the freeway, saying she wants to quit college. Can't close the session, failed the exam, and they sent her to retake it. And she said, "I'm not going, I'm sick of studying. What to do?" Kate stared at me, but I tried to show her that I was driving, and that the whole thing had nothing to do with me. I wasn't hired to raise other people's spoiled daughters, and I didn't know how to do that. Kate touched my leg gently, as if unintentionally, and repeated, "Tell me what to do." The desperation in her voice, the expectation of support, the expectation of a solution, the near certainty that I would offer it, all irritated me. "I don't know what to do, honey." I tried to explain as calmly as possible. "She's not my child, and she's not even a child anymore." "I don't know what to do." I tried to explain calmly. "She's not my child, and she's not a child anymore. She doesn't want to study and live off the shelf, Let her go to work. Maybe then she'll figure out what adult life is all about. My answer didn't sit well with Kate, and she started sobbing. That's a woman's thing. The blackmail is about to begin. My beloved rarely uses it, but she's as good at it as anyone else. Women have this skill. I'll ask you, my love, and please don't refuse me. I never refuse your requests. I looked at Kate. Her gaze was alluring and sly. Well, I couldn't say otherwise after tonight. My darling, indeed, had never refused me anything. But what did she want in return? Talk to Emily tonight, I beg of you. She has never had a man's authority. You can do it. I know you can. Without being too harsh, just explain, as she'll ruin her life. There's 1 year left to study. Tourism is such a good major. I started to refuse, but in the end I gave in. Not every man can withstand the tears of the woman he loves. The deal is this. In the evening after work, I'll pick up Emily from the dormitory and take her to us. I'll talk to her, try to persuade her to take up books. And tomorrow, we'll take Kate into town. She has just been put on the night shift, and we'll spend some time together, just the two of us, asking the girl to think about her plans for the future. At 5 o'clock, I pulled up to Emily's dorm. I hadn't seen her in almost 6 months, and I wondered how to get this stupid, forced conversation going. I was starting to glance at my watch when I noticed a girl approaching me. She was walking, tossing back her loose hair and elastic with springy long legs. At that age, you can really become a different person in 6 months. And Emily turned into a real beauty. Hello, Uncle Adam. Greeting me, Emily flopped down next to me on the front seats. Her short denim skirt was a little too far up, which didn't seem to embarrass her at all. Mom asked me to make sure you have a good time tonight. She just got called in for a shift, changed her schedule. I invite you to visit us. She just sighed and clicked her seatbelt buckle. I think that's how they say yes now. When we arrived, I immediately suggested, and let's swim to the other side of the lake. We'll set up a tent, eat fish, roast on the fire. It seemed to me that in such conditions, it would be easier to make a confidential conversation. But my stepdaughter was clearly not thrilled. Watching her expression, I noticed how she rolled her eyes, but then suddenly nodded in agreement. Yes, come on. It's nice to have a change of scenery. We can get to know each other better too. I packed everything we needed, and off we went. It wasn't a long trip, so I untied our boat, which was lurking in the reeds, and we rowed. Emily sat on the bow and looked thoughtfully into the distance. She was still in her short skirt and tight swimsuit. She threw off her shoes and threw her long, tanned legs over the bench. I couldn't help thinking that Kate was next to me. After all, she was the one we usually took these little hikes with. It's a good thing I brought her mom's camouflage outfit for her, or in that outfit, the mosquitoes wouldn't leave much room on her. Once I was on the opposite bank, I quickly set up the tent, and Emily asked me to gather firewood. In 5 minutes, she returned almost without wood, scratching the bitten place. The girl looked ridiculously miserable. She only now realized how inappropriate the clothes she had chosen. Grab and go change, I said, handing over the camouflage and boots. Emily quickly ducked into the tent and rustled in there. In my mind, I scolded her. She went in like an elevator and didn't even close it. There would be a whole tent of mosquitoes. I quickly walked over and wanted to button the opening, but I involuntarily peeked inside. No matter how little Emily's outfit hid, an embarrassing amount had escaped my eyes. She looked like a mermaid in her pretty little outfit, her hair loose. I stared and stared, unable to move away, or at least turn away. She bent down to tie her shoelaces, staying down to her waist with nothing on. Her hair fell forward in a golden cloud, leaving 2 horizontal stripes on her back, marking the removed piece of women's clothing. Suddenly, Emily threw her hair back in one motion, and from below she glanced right over to where I was standing. For 1/100th of an instant, I froze in horror. I think she did. But no, the girl quickly turned away and continued to dress. Indeed, what could she see? My burning eye. When Emily came out of the tent, I had already built a fire. It was crackling merrily and amiably, dispersing clouds of insects with the smoke. As I sorted out the fishing rods for us and figured out where to put them, I almost got rid of the compulsive body tension. I don't know how to fish, childishly offended, Emily said. Never mind, I'll teach you. It's not hard at all. Yes, there's always something to learn from grown men, said my stepdaughter suddenly. I almost got my own finger on the hook. What? People used to know a lot more, so you can learn all kinds of useful things from older people. Rita continued innocently. I exhaled in relief. Damn imagination. I hope she didn't know what I was thinking at first. Threw our floats in the water, began to explain that cannot be distracted. How and when to pull the bitten fish. The girl listened attentively, and soon she was lucky to get her first fish. Taking it off the hook and throwing it into the bucket of water, Emily let out a shriek of triumph and threw herself on my neck. Good job, you did it right the first time. I hugged her very warmly, but immediately felt uncomfortable. Having caught enough, we roasted our prey on the coals and sat down to dinner. The evening slowly cooled down into night, and the first stars appeared in the sky. Near the fire, the mosquitoes didn't touch us. You're a smart girl, Emily, I said. You know everything right away. Why don't you want to study? Did your mother put you up to this? With a hint of dissatisfaction, the girl remarked. You know, I think for beautiful women the value of education is greatly exaggerated. I grinned, ignoring the subtext. Education is important for everyone. Your future depends on it. Tourism is a very interesting and exciting job. You like adventure. I'm much more interested in other adventures. And what's wrong with a girl having no education? If a man likes you, he's not looking at your degree. But you don't want to be looked at all your life through that plane, do you? You don't want to be looked at all your life through that plane, do you? I tried to move off the subject gently. What's wrong with being good at it? With no offense, she asked. The girl looked at me straight and unashamedly. In her dark eyes, the shade of inky sky reflected the fires from the fire. Emily, I wish I could put you on a pole for saying that. I threw it back in anger and embarrassment. Absolutely. I'd like to put you on the cudgel, Uncle. What's a cuckoo? My stepdaughter naively inquired. I explained to her the meaning of the fishing term, secretly glad that she was not aware of its second meaning. That's disgusting. She wrinkled her nose at Emily. And you're a bloodthirsty man, Uncle Adam. She laughed, and so did I. It seemed to make sense why so many people were attracted to young people. They make you feel 20 years younger too. Just the years I had been missing out on because of family problems. We laughed, sat for a while longer, and then my companion went to bed. At least what I could do, I did. I taught us some fish for breakfast and went to my tent, too. I fell asleep instantly, before I even had time to lie down. I woke up in the middle of the night to a quiet rustle. I listened without lifting my head, and then a soft, smelling smoke fell on my face. A woman's face, with eyes that sparkled like a cat's, leaned toward me. It was like an obsession, but very pleasant. The girl gently touched my cheeks, my neck, my shoulders with her snowy fingers, expertly freeing them from the camouflage jacket. Emily doesn't have to, I said quietly, not too sure. Worth it, my mermaid whispered. The warmth of her embrace was inviting and fresh, like the smell of sun-warmed flowers. Without remembering myself, in a half-dream, I hugged her back. Strangely, there seemed to be nothing objectionable going on. How many times had Kate snuggled against me, kissed me the same way? They looked so much alike in the darkness, but I seemed different to myself, young, energetic, full of energy. I inhaled the sweet scent of her neck, lowered myself. I couldn't resist any longer. Waking up before the sun, I looked around. Beyond the tent wall, the sun was beginning to rise. Emily was sniffling sweetly next to me, her hair parted in her sleep. I got dressed and went outside. Smoking cigarette after cigarette, I belatedly lamented and complained bitterly about my carelessness. And how could I have ever judged my father in my time? At least he loved that woman. Why did I do all this? Emily woke up quickly. She wished me a good morning, as if nothing had happened, and asked when we were going back. We quickly cleaned up the camp, and without even eating breakfast, we started on our way back. We didn't talk, just as we had on the way back to town. Annoyingly, I noticed that I was the only one who felt uncomfortable. The girl felt quite at ease. I stopped the car at Kate's work, and we waited. Then Emily broke the silence. "Uncle Adam," she said slowly, "don't worry, nothing happened. I was angry at Mom, but it's gone now. She's right. You should study more and walk less. Just stand up for me in front of my mom. Don't let her take away my pocket money. Do it for the sake of our friendship." I looked at Emily in her clear eyes and almost laughed. This is how and from where they acquire the skill of manipulation. Maybe it's an innate female talent. We met Kate, and we all went to the cafe together. There Emily announced that she had thought things over after our conversation and agreed to continue her training. My beloved was over the moon. As we both looked into the light of Emily's leaving dormitory, Kate hugged me and said, "You had a good influence on her. Thank you very much." I can hardly think of myself as a moral model now, judging others and condemning promiscuity, and I am ashamed inwardly in front of Kate too. But what to do? What happened happened. The truth is, looking into Emily's clear and so innocent eyes, I cannot easily believe in the unreality of what happened. Maybe this whole betrayal thing was all in my head. Nothing really happened.